Welcome, and thank you for your interest in the Public Art Pre-Qualified Artist roster. My name is Jason Huff, and I'm the Program Manager for Seattle's Public Art Program. For over 50 years, the 1% for Art program has placed the ideas and work of artists in the public realm in order to ensure that people who live, work, and visit Seattle have an opportunity to experience art as they move throughout the city. From large-scale sculptures to murals to temporary art installations, our collection boasts of over 400 public art installations throughout the city's public spaces, as well as over 3,000 portable works that are displayed in city offices. Throughout our 50 years, our program has pushed the boundaries of public art, from developing the design team model to public art bootcamp. These developments did not happen alone, though. Our partners in the city and community helped foster these changes, and that's where you come in. As our city continues to grow and change, we are looking to artists to help us shape a better future for the arts community as well as the greater community. We look to you to show us your ideas for public art related to race and social justice, to environmental stewardship, or to just create a quiet space for people to just enjoy the moment. The Seattle Office of Arts and Culture commits to an anti-racist work practice that centers the creativity, leadership of people of color, those most impacted by structural racism, to move towards a system that benefits us all. We also acknowledge that we are on Indigenous land, the traditional territories of the Coast Salish people. We envision a city of people whose success, safety, and health are not predetermined by their race. A city where all artists, performers, writers, and creative workers have the freedom, agency, and platform to share and amplify their stories, art, culture, and experiences. At the same time, we acknowledge that our actions, both conscious and unconscious, past and present, have benefited some communities while limiting opportunities and outcomes for communities of color. We look forward to our vision by addressing our working to eliminate institutional racism in our programs, policies, and practices. In alignment with our city's Race and Social Justice Initiative, we seek new solutions that use arts as a strategy to drive not only our office, but the city as a whole towards racial equity and social justice. We will continue to break barriers and build arts integrated tools that challenge the status quo and push us towards the inclusive society we envision. Again, thank you for tuning in and your interest in the Public Art Pre-Qualified Artist roster, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Maya McKnight. I am a public art project manager for the Office of Arts and Culture in the Public Art Division. I'm really thrilled that you're here today and interested in watching this recording based on the upcoming application for the public art roster managed by the Office of Arts and Culture through the City of Seattle. What I'm going to be talking a little bit about today is what is the artist roster and why you might want to apply. I'm going to talk a little bit about the application process and go through some frequently asked questions to hopefully answer some of the questions that you might have. So within the Public Art Division of the Office of Arts and Culture, we commission artworks along with our partner agencies around the city. These are big and small and all things in between. And we have three primary methods of which we select artists. One is a pre-qualified artist roster, in which we're talking about today. Second is an open call, and third is an invitational. An open call is where we put out the scope of work and send that out and invite applications. And invitational is generally for a very specific type of work and a type of project in which we invite a select group of individuals to apply. The roster is a juried pool that we use to select for upcoming projects. This roster will be used for projects up to $500,000. Any projects in excess of that amount, an open call will be distributed. The projects in these upcoming years can be permanent, temporary, freestanding, site integrated, as well as community engagement focus and digital artworks. The roster is our primary method of selection for artists, and we do this for a variety of reasons. One, we acknowledge and address the position of privilege that it takes time, work, and expense to apply to artist calls again and again. We have probably about 15 to 20 calls, different projects that we have on an annual basis, and just acknowledge that it is a lot of work to apply to each individual opportunity as they come up available. By doing a roster, we invite artists to apply once every 3 years to be considered for all of our projects. We feel that this reduces application fatigue as well as increases transparency to our selection processes. This method is also in line with best practices within the field of public art. And because of the time involved in doing a call to artists, it reduces staff time on our end and the cost and workload to allow more of that project budget to go directly to the artists for more art. I will note that artists oftentimes, once the details of a specific project come into focus and a scope of work is created for each individual project, oftentimes roster artists are invited to potentially either submit additional information and sometimes invited to interview for that specific opportunity. The roster also has an online feature that is publicly accessible. We use a software platform called Submittable that has a gallery feature that allows it to be a publicly facing database. We do this to be able to be a benefit to artists, to be able to offer this opportunity to private developers, other agencies, other municipalities that are potentially looking to hire artists that might not have the ability to reach artist audience spaces we have. If you apply, you agree to be on this publicly available roster, and what isn't accessible, I'll go into a little bit as part of the application process. With this feature, I did just want to share this is a screenshot of one of the first pages. If someone goes to our website, goes to our public art roster, our current roster, they will see a whole listing of different individuals. The view is random based, and so each time somebody accesses the database, it's a whole different order. There's also a search feature, so people can type in certain keywords to be able to do kind of a curated search for the different types of artists that they're looking for. I will say we are contacted quite a bit by different developers that are seeking artists, and this is a really incredible tool to be able to share the incredible artists and artwork that our region supports. This is just another screenshot as well. So if you click on any of those one individual artists, this is an example, Kalina Chung's profile that includes information, includes the image samples that were uploaded, the information that was entered about those images, as well as an artist statement, their website, as well as some keywords as part of the public profile. For this upcoming year, so the roster will be eligible for in 24, 25, and 26. The call is open January 2024. Throughout the time of its being open, there's a whole variety of different drop-in sessions that we hope if you have questions, you'll be able to either swing on by both virtually and in person. Those dates are being added to as we are able to confirm them. And so please check the website as well as the submittable platform description with the most up-to-date dates and times for all of those drop-in information sessions. Wednesday, March 6th is the deadline, so please apply by then. We will then go through a selection panel process with artist notifications happening in June of 2024. For this specific project, there will be an annual application timeline. And so if artists that applied this time that might not have been accepted are absolutely invited to apply again. Artists who missed this opportunity, were out of the country, didn't know about it, whatever, are then invited to apply again. But it is a 3-year roster, so it will be valid for the years 2024, 2025, and 2026. Within the roster as well, 2 times a year, there will be the opportunity to update images and information, just acknowledging that artists have different projects coming online all the time and want your profile to be as up to date as possible. And so this will occur once you're accepted onto the roster, an email will go out and there will be a time span in which you're able to access your account to be able to manipulate and change the information that you choose to have on view that best represents your work and your practice. So in planning for the roster, the project management team forecasting into the next 3 years really took a look at what kind of projects that we will have and assume that we will have. And broke it down into kind of these large types and bullet points that I wanted to talk a little bit about today. One is permanent artwork that is site responsive and or site integrated. So the large bulk of our work is that we work with our city partners, our city agencies, Seattle City Lights, Seattle Department of Transportation, Seattle Public Utilities, Parks, and others to work closely with them as they develop capital projects, buildings, roadways, infrastructure throughout the city to be able to integrate art into their project that both elevates the artwork and enhances their project. That's, I'd say, the lion's share of the projects that we do. But we also do quite a bit of temporary artwork. So this is also site responsive, but it's created in materials that are generally have a shorter lifespan. So 6 months to 2 to 3 years is generally the time span for our temporary work, and oftentimes is installed using existing infrastructure. So instead of the permanence of a foundation, oftentimes is artwork installed or applied to fencing, bollards, sides of buildings, and other such that uses what is already there to be able to serve as a canvas for artwork that is there on a temporary basis. We also have design-only projects in which we work with artists to design the work that then is created and installed by either the city or by a third-party vendor. A good example of this is the thermoplastic design crosswalks that you see throughout the city. We work with artists to do the design, but the installation of that is expert work done by our SDOT team. And so it's a design-only contract where the design is done by the artist and then the implementation and creation is done by another. And new to this upcoming roster are these two other categories, a creative community engagement artist, in which we're seeking artists that are steeped in creative community engagement techniques. Their work doesn't necessarily culminate in an end artwork or an end physical object, but the process of working with community groups to help plan and determine what might be in terms of public art is a really integral part of our work, and have many projects coming up in the next several years that will really utilize the experience of artists to be able to think about how we can work closely with communities to be able to better plan for the future. And lastly is digital and new technology artwork. We have a couple projects that are being planned currently and a lot of interest from the variety of folks that we work with that are interested in working with digital artists to be able to create an artwork that isn't necessarily a physical object, but uses this media and new media to be able to showcase information and stories about the artist's perspective on a variety of different themes. And so digital data mapping, VR, AR, digital films, website aspects that are interactive are all something that we'll be focusing on in the next several years. Within the application, we hope that it is relatively straightforward. And so the bulk of the application is really these 3 items: a letter of interest, a biographical statement, and your work sample images. The letter of interest is an artist statement where we really want to know about you, your artistic practice, and what you seek to share about yourself. This is a text box in which is a 300-word maximum limit and or 60 seconds if you choose to do a audio or a video submission. A biographical statement, same word and length restrictions, but the biographical statement replaces the traditional resume, in which we are hoping that you can share with us in a short format a little bit about your background and how your background informs your current practice. And then the work samples, images, still images, and or video of your previous work, along with the description of the metadata as the application asks for it. That includes the title, the commission amount, if applicable, and a little description just showcasing to the selection committee of what you hope to really kind of showcase about this artwork. In terms of your overall application. I will also note here that we accept the artist statement, letter of interest, and biographical statement in either written or audio video form. The intent of offering this opportunity is really not to encourage any sort of highly produced video for this aspect, but really for individuals who feel that they better represent themselves verbally over written. Please don't submit a highly produced video. It really is to be able to best kind of communicate yourself and what you seek to share with the selection committee. In addition to those items, there are a series of various application questions, so application questionnaire. These questions are not part of the overall selection, but assist us in being able to sort and manage the data from the back end. The first suite of questions are for the online database, the gallery feature that we talked about previously. This includes a section for you to submit an artist statement that can be the same as was submitted in the application, or it can be different. Because it will be public facing, you can choose to alter the phrasing of that for that audience versus for kind of the selection committee of being considered for these types of projects. We also have an opportunity for you to be able to kind of designate different tags for the search feature, as well as your website and a couple of other items to just be able to manage that and have your public profile best represent you. The second set of questions is more focused on the project manager role, using that internally for projects. So there's a series of questions that asks about your experience level, if you've done public art projects in the past or not, if you're relatively new to the field, for us to be able to kind of know where you're at in terms of selecting you for certain projects. Also, a couple of questions about if there's specific interest in different themes and specific questions related to our city partners. If you're interested, say, in kind of water management and SPU projects, we can take that into consideration as well as we go through our processes. And then one question in regards to budget, if you're interested in being considered for only projects over a certain amount, for example. The third set of questions are demographic questions. So a series of questions based on your background and experiences. And these are compiled directly by our overall office, our panel coordinator at Arts, to just be able to provide a better understanding of who's applying to our calls, to then also be able to kind of showcase that back and compare it to who's receiving the commissions at a later date. The selection process for this project is a one-step process for the artist. So we ask that you apply by March 6th, 2024 for this application. After we receive the application and that deadline has passed, a panel of artists, art administrators, and community representatives will convene to review each of the work samples, as well as indicate feedback for the stated criteria. Once we go through the selection panel process, the roster will be reviewed by staff, Public Art Advisory Committee, as well as the arts director prior to final notification and approval of the overall roster, which is scheduled to occur in June 2024. The selection criteria of which I noted previously, in which the selection committee will consider, are these four things: that the artist communicates a unique vision or perspective, that the artist demonstrates an authentic relationship with the subject matter, that the artist shows ability to create site-responsive work, engaging a site and or community. And then 4, that the artist demonstrates command of materials and or skill in technique. So each of these criteria, as we go through the individual applications, will be addressed, and each selection panelist will be asked to score your application based on these criteria. So for each of these criteria, the panelists, for instance, will be asked if they strongly agree or strongly disagree to each of these questions. And so I highly recommend that you consider each of these as you write both your biographical statements, your artist statement / letter of interest, as well as the images that you choose and how you describe them. Because this is the selection criteria of which individuals will be going through and making rankings and recommendations to be placed on the roster. The application itself is hosted through Submittable, which is an outside software platform that we hope is pretty intuitive, relatively easy to use. If you haven't used it already, you do need to set up an account with your email and a password, but it is a great tool for both our projects as well as a lot of projects throughout different municipalities and different public art projects. They have a good support system as well. So if you do encounter any sort of technical issues along the way, can reach out to Submittable as well if we're unable to assist with a specific question on that. As you go through the application, there's various upload buttons, there's various text boxes. We do recommend that you write your answers in a Word document for the spell check feature as well as the word count feature, and then copy and paste it into the submittable platform. It will just lead you one page at a time through all of those aspects, from the required information and some non-required information, and then finally all the supplementary questions at the very end. At the very, very end, after you go through all of the questions, you will find a little box that says click to agree, terms of use. You can click on that and have the full terms of use pop up that you can read through. And then you have the option of one or two things. You can either hit the big orange button and apply, and then the application goes straight out off to us and you won't have access to it anymore. Or you can save as draft. Save as draft and go back and kind of review, finalize, second set of eyes, anything that you most feel comfortable with, and then apply when you're ready. We definitely do encourage that you apply before the last minute deadline, just to make sure there's no kind of technical glitches that occur, that the time zone's the same and all that good stuff. Just know that the difference, if you hit save draft, we won't get it. You do have to kind of finalize to apply. I hope that you've enjoyed some of the images that you've seen throughout this presentation. They are all from the past 3 years or so, from a variety of different public art projects that we have either completed or are in process, many of which were selected from our prior roster of artists that we were thrilled to be able to work with. So look forward to working with you on this. I'm the prime project manager on this, and so please feel free to contact me at any time, and do hope to see you at one of the many drop-in sessions if you do have any questions that this didn't cover. Within our next segment, however, I am thrilled to be able to go through a series of FAQs. I am pleased to be joined today by two other project managers to be able to discuss some frequently asked questions in regard to the artist roster. Becky, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Maya. I'm Becky Johnson. I'm a public art project manager with the Office of Arts and Culture.
And I'm Jeremy Beliveau, also a project manager with the Office of Arts and Culture.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we're going to talk a little bit today about some frequently asked questions that we receive on a somewhat regular basis in regards to both overall projects and specifically the roster project as well.
The first question, I'm currently on the roster. Can I reapply? The answer is yes, and you must apply. The roster that currently exists is expiring, so you must apply to this new roster so that you can be considered for future projects.
One question we receive is, do you have any general application tips? Absolutely. One of the first recommendations we have is to write out your answers to your question in a Word document. Word document allows you both to use the spell check feature as well as do a word count. For each of the sections, there is a word limitation of 300 words, and so being able to do this in Word versus writing directly in Submittable and then having it reject that answer is a huge time saver. We also recommend to have a friend or a colleague or a partner potentially read some of your answers ahead of time as well. We also recommend applying early. You never know what kind of technical issues will pop up, whether it's on your computer, whether it's on Submittable, whether it's a power outage. Just be sure to apply early, as we would hate for any sort of technical hiccup to impact your ability to be considered as part of this roster. Another tip that we have is we always recommend within the image submission, there is a little section in part of the metadata section that is the description of the image. We highly recommend you use this space. It's a great opportunity to be able to describe what we're seeing as part of the image and specifically what you want the selection panel to know about why you're showing this image, whether it's an example of how you've conducted a community engagement workshop in the past, whether it's an early example of an artwork of where you want to go in terms of your career. Those are great opportunities to be able to describe that wouldn't necessarily be clear just through the image itself. So use that description area. Lastly, please reach out to us. We'll go through some FAQs today, but if you have any remaining questions in regards to the application or what you're going to submit, please feel free to reach out. We also are scheduling a whole host of different drop-in information sessions. These will be both in person and online that you're invited to attend, have a conversation with one of the project managers in our office to really kind of delve into the nitty-gritty of this project. So I invite you to attend those as well.
Next question. What kind of information should I include in my artist statement and my biographical statement? So the artist statement is really kind of talking about your body of work that you've worked on and kind of where your trajectory is going. Like as an artist, like what do you want us to know about you? Think about the criteria specifically that's being considered within the application too, and tie it back to that if you can. That I think will go a really long way with your application. And so our biographical statement, this is kind of the about you area. So this takes the place of the traditional resume. So anything you'd like us to know that you want the selection panel to consider, please feel free to put it here.
Next question is, what kind of projects do you expect in the next few years, and how many projects do you generally commission every year? Our office, on average, commissions between 25 to 35 projects per year, and really take all forms, permanent, site-specific, site-integrated, as well as temporary, kind of span the breadth. In upcoming years, we expect a continuation of that with about the same amount going forward. We work closely with our organizational and city partners, Seattle Public Utilities, Seattle City Light, Seattle Department of Transportation, Parks, and others. And so work to be responsive to what capital projects they have coming up. And so work along with artists to be able to complete and commission projects. One thing that we do foresee for this upcoming years that hasn't been part of our past projects is a real focus both on community planning artists and community engagement artists, as well as digital artists that have been kind of specifically highlighted in this roster call.
Next question. Do you have any advice on how I should choose what images to submit? First and foremost, we recommend that you select images that speak to your ability to do the kind of work that you would like to do in the future. It's good to provide examples showing the breadth of the work that you've done in the past, in terms of scale, budget, medium, etc. But make sure that the work samples you submit communicate the type of work you're excited about and would like to do in the future. We recommend that you submit PNG or JPEG files for still images and MP4 files for video submissions. Make sure to check your compression settings when exporting your images to get the best quality you can, but make sure to give yourself plenty of time to upload large files or balance your file size if necessary. We recommend submitting no more than 2 images of a single artwork if you can help it, so be sure to choose images that you think best represent that work. We also highly recommend that you do not submit composite images with more than 1 photo of your work in a single file. We understand that you're only able to submit 10 images, but these files do get compressed by Submittable. The resolution required to clearly see details in these composite images are very often lost, so you would be doing yourself a huge disservice if you were to submit photos with more than 1 image composited in the file.
Great. Next question. I'm a performing artist and/or literary artist. Is this roster something that I should apply for? While you are welcome and can apply for this, it's not necessarily the best fit for these art forms. Our focus is really for this project on visual artists and being able to create both temporary and permanent sculptures and artwork that will be out in the public sphere. For other art forms, including performing and literary, we have done projects in the past. And for this, if we had an upcoming future project, would almost likely be an open call to be able to specifically outline what the project is and specifically reach out to those communities.
Next question. You specified community engagement artists. Can you speak a little more about what types of projects you expect? Sure. So we've kind of created a new model thinking about community engagement artists. Kind of another term we've been using with that too is the planning artist, thinking about how we can include artists early on in capital projects that are usually have a long lead time. And this provides us an opportunity to not just work with the design team about scoping additional projects, but also working with the community and the stakeholders to identify what kind of projects the community would like to see within their neighborhoods before we select artists for the permanent artworks. So if you're interested in doing more community-based, going out and doing workshops, focus groups, things of that nature, that's the kind of work we're thinking about with community engagement artists at this time.
Next question. You specified digital artists. Can you speak a little bit more about what projects to expect? So for these kinds of submissions, I would say that they should focus on digital art that exists outside the realm of what we would consider traditional art forms. So a focus on those digital works that don't generally and often cannot occupy a physical space. This would be focused on works that are fundamentally different from things like digital illustration, painting, or photography. This is by no means an exhaustive list, but we're thinking about works that incorporate art forms like AR and VR, data visualization, creative coding, multimedia, digital storytelling, or creative website design. Those are the kinds of things that would be appropriate for this category. A side note, we're currently not accepting applications that utilize artificial intelligence or other machine learning algorithms unless it can be clearly demonstrated that they are created from scratch and wholly owned by the artist applying. So in essence, creative coding forms instead of utilization of commercial generative machine learning models.
If an artist is on the roster, what can they expect in terms of communication and if how they are selected for upcoming projects? We use the roster as kind of the application for all future projects. And so it launches artists to that first phase of the selection panel. From that grouping of artists on the roster, a selection panel meets to be able to determine individuals who will then be interviewed for the final project. Almost always, artists are alerted to the fact and either asked to opt into the project or opt out once they know the specifics of the project. Similarly, we do distribute and write an entire call that outlines the project scope, the budget, the timeline, and all those important details to let artists know the specifics of the call. There are some exceptions to this. Occasionally with projects that are specifically tight timeline or other factors, artists can be directly selected and then will be contacted to see if they are interested in the project. But generally it's a shortening of it, so artists won't have to reapply to the specific call, but they'll be considered for calls as they come available and then alerted to the fact that they are under consideration.
All right, next question. Can you talk about what the selection process will be for the applications and the timeline? And if I miss this round, will there be another chance? So the selection process, the deadline to apply is March 6th. Please apply early, get your applications in. The timeline for review of the applications by a selection panel is kind of April and May. From there, those recommendations will go to our Public Art Advisory Committee in June, and then artists will be notified at that time, considering late June. And if we have to extend that for any reason, you'll get an email communication explaining that to you to notify you that instance. If I miss this round, yes, the great news about the new roster, it's a 3-year roster, but we plan to open it every single year. So this time next year, if you miss this time, keep an eye out. You'll be able to apply if you would like to, if you didn't get in this round. And if you did get in, you do not need to reapply either. So it is a 3-year roster, but if you get in next year, you'll be on it for 2 years.
Great. So hopefully we've been able to answer some of your questions, but acknowledge that you probably have more questions, or maybe some of our answers made you think of additional questions. So we definitely invite you to reach out to myself with either through phone or email to be able to ask those questions. We also are offering a whole bunch of different information workshops, really designed as drop-in sessions for you to be able to come in, ask questions, learn a little bit more about the roster, and make sure that you have the information that you need. A full listing of these workshops will be available on our website, as well as embedded into the overall call within Submittable. We're updating them now, and they will be continually updated throughout the time, and they will include both in person throughout the city as well as online time. So ideally, you'll have lots of opportunities to either reach out directly or attend an upcoming workshop. Lastly, I just wanted to thank you for your time and your interest in this exciting project. We hope that you apply. We hope that you'll reach out with additional questions. And thank you so much for your consideration. And we look forward to receiving your application.